Good evening and welcome to another edition of Sports Live. I am your host, Zach Huntley, and my co-host, unfortunately, is sick, so I am all by myself tonight. We're going to be rolling out some information here tonight. Between now and probably about 8:15, we're going to talk some MLB playoffs, see what's going on since we last were on the air. From about 8:20 to around 8:45, we'll review Week 7 of an NCAA football. Very good week of football. Couldn't beat it. And some unbelievable things happen in the college world. From around 8:50 to 9:30, we'll review Week 6 NFL football. Talk about what happened yesterday. Interesting day of football. There's a lot of things. It was just interesting. I watched the games. Very interesting football. And to round out the show at about 9:35 to about 9:50, we'll review Week 6 fantasy football. So we'll talk about some fantasy football. And unfortunately, my teams didn't go well this weekend, but that's okay. Because, you got to always lose and you got to always win. So, you got to go one way or another. And that's just what happens. So we're going to get started with some MLB baseball. When we were last on, I believe the NLDS just ended is when we were last on, if I correctly remember. It's been, last Wednesday, I believe, was, if I can get it going here, and let's see here. Yeah, last Wednesday was the finale of the ALDS. So coming in Thursday was the finale of the NLDS. You had the Mets and the Dodgers playing in a Game 5. And very interesting Game 5 it was. Got to watch the game. I tell you what, it's kind of interesting, and it was interesting. Very interesting game. Zach Greinke was pitching for the Mets while Greinke for the Dodgers, excuse me. Yeah, the Mets wish they had Zach Greinke. It was Jacob deGrom for the Mets and Zach Greinke for the Dodgers. Again, the Dodgers backs to the wall like they have for how many years, and things didn't quite get out to a great start in the first inning. The Mets were able to get on Greinke early. And I believe I have that here. Yes, here is the scoring play of Daniel Murphy doubling to left field, scoring Granderson.
Oh, the changeup. To left center field, pretty well hit. Jock Peterson goes back. That's off the wall. Granderson is around third. He's going to score easily. And all the way into third comes Daniel Murphy, and the Mets are on the board here in the first.
So the Mets take a 1-0 lead. And then the Dodgers were able to score 2 in the bottom of the first to take a 2-1 lead. Justin Turner singled to right, scoring Corey Seager, and Andre Ethier singled to left to score Adrian Gonzalez. So that gave him a 2-1 lead. The Mets would tie it up at 2 in the top of the fourth when Travis Deard hit a sacrifice fly to right field, and Daniel Murphy would score. In the top of the sixth inning, with the score tied at 2, Daniel Murphy for the Mets came up to bat.
Giving him another look by pitching in stretch.
The 3-2 is driven to right. That ball is gone. Daniel Murphy has broken the tie. Here in the sixth, it is 3-2 Mets.
So Daniel Murphy breaks the tie to get it to 3-2, and the rest of the way was quite interesting, as both pitchers were able to settle down, and here is the finale of Game 5.
Kendrick is 0 for 4. Reached on an error in the second.
Made up his mind he was going to sit on that fastball. The slider in the dirt, he was already committed.
There is strike away. Familia to the plate, and he struck him out. And the New York Mets have won this.
So a strikeout of Howie Kendrick to end the game gave the Mets the 3-2 victory and to move on to the NLCS to take on the Chicago Cubs. On Friday, Game 1 of the ALCS was between the Kansas City Royals and the Toronto Blue Jays, and this game really was, I don't know what you could say. It was really disappointing, let's put it that way. Thought it'd be more of a fight. Wasn't really a fight. Kansas City got on the board right in the bottom of the third when Alcides Escobar doubled to right field, scored Alex Gordon. They would also score one on a single from Lorenzo Cain to right field to go up 2-0. And then in the bottom of the fourth inning, Salvador Perez came up to the plate.
Here's a fly ball in the left. Off the bat of Perez at the wall. It's gone. 3-0 Kansas City. Royals baseball.
Salvador Perez would hit a home run to take it to 3-0. Hosmer would double to right field in the bottom of the eighth to get it to 4-0, and then Kendrys Morales would hit a sacrifice fly to get it to 5-0, and that would be your bowl game. The Royals would win 5-0. Edison Volquez got the win on the mound as Michael Estrada got the loss for Toronto. On Saturday, Game 2 between Kansas City and Toronto was not much of a game again, as Toronto sent out good old David Freese, who has been just, I don't know what you could say about David Freese. He's been really bad in postseason baseball. But I got off to a good start for for Toronto, excuse me. Ryan Goins would double to left field to get this game up 1-0 for Toronto. Edwin Encarnacion would single to left field to get the game to 2-0. And then Tulowitzki would be able to hit a double to right field to get it to 3-0. And Price was pitching pretty well, but he got to his old self, giving up a couple singles. Kansas City would go on to score 5 runs in the bottom of the seventh, including one double, all singles, and then one ground out to score those runs. And then they would add one more into the eighth inning when Moustakas would get a single to score Eric Hosmer. That would get it to 6-3, and Kansas City would shut them down in order to end the game. So David Price, the losing pitcher, he went 6 2/3, gave up 5 earned runs, had 8 strikeouts. His ERA is 6.75 in the postseason. He's been pretty horrid in the postseason. Besides, I think he had he's gotten 2 relief victories. Otherwise, it was pretty horrid. Yodano Ventura went for the Kansas City Royals. He went 5 1/3, gave up 3 runs, had 6 Ks. And, of course, Kansas City went to their big old bullpen to take a 2-0 lead in the series and take a dominating lead going over to Toronto. The Mets and the Cubs started their series out on Saturday. The Mets going with Matt Harvey on the mound, and the Cubs going with John Lester. Lester pitched a pretty dang good game. And Matt Harvey pitched an excellent game. It was a great game. The Mets get on the board right away in the first inning. Again, due to the one and the only for the Mets, Daniel Murphy.
A ball and a strike. That ball's well hit to right. Did he get all of this one? Yes, he did.
So Murphy would give the Cubs, or the Mets, a 1-0 lead. The Cubs would tie the game up in the fifth inning when Sterling Castro came up to the plate.
Lead at first. Hit on the button to center field. Lagares is back, and it's over his head. Castro's going to have extra bases. They are going to wave Rizzo. The throw to the plate is high and late, and the game is tied.
The Cubs would tie the game up there at 1. Granderson would single in the bottom half of the fifth to give the Mets a 2-1 lead. Travis Dayard would homer to center field to give the Mets a 3-1 lead in the bottom of the sixth. In the bottom of the seventh, Granderson hit a sac fly and scored Lagares to get it to 4-1. And the Cubs would add one on with Kyle Schwarber hitting a monster home run. However, the final score was 4-2 Mets as they took a one-game lead. Lester went 6 2/3 inning, giving up 4 earned and having 5 Ks, while Matt Harvey went 7 2/3, giving up 2 earned and 9 Ks. So the Mets taking a Game 1 lead there. And then yesterday, Game 2, the Mets had Noah Syndergaard on the mound, while the Cubs had ace pitcher Jake Arrieta on the mound. And things didn't quite go to plan for the Cubs as the Mets got on the board again in the first inning. David Wright hit a double to center field to score Curtis Granderson. And then, again, the one and the only Daniel Murphy came up to plate.
Hitting .320, 4 home runs, and 6 runs batted in. He's homered in 3 straight postseason games. That's in the air to right. That's pretty deep. That ball is gone. Daniel Murphy has struck again.
This is a curveball.
So Daniel Murphy would hit his 4th home run, as they said, 4th home run in 4 consecutive games. That gave the Mets a 3-0 lead. Cespedes would single in a run to get it to 4-0, and Chris Bryant was able to hit a double to score Dexter Fowler to give the Cubs on the board. However, the Mets would end up defeating the Cubs 4-1. Syndergaard got the win. Arrieta with the loss. Familia with the save. So 2-0 starts for each team, or each leading team. Both the Royals up 2-0, the Mets up 2-0. So Game 3 coming here. One tonight right now. It is the Royals and the Blue Jays. They are playing tonight, as the Mets and the Cubs will play tomorrow night at Fenway Park. That'll be a 7 o'clock game. Right now, there isn't any highlights, but right now it is 6-2 Toronto at home. Zobrist got the Royals on the board with a ground out. Escobar would score. In the bottom of the second, Ryan Goins was able to hit a single to left field. Tulowitzki and Pilar scored to give the Blue Jays a 2-1 lead. Donaldson singled in Goins to give it a 3-1 lead. Hosmer would come back in the third inning to ground out and a force out to have Zobrist score to get it to 3-2, and then Troy Tulowitzki would hit a home run in the bottom of the third, or still in the bottom of the third right now. He would hit a home run in the bottom of the third, a 3-run homer. He scored Edwin Encarnacion and, of course, former Twin Chris Calabello. And so right now it is 6-2 in the bottom of the third inning in Toronto. That game is, I believe, on Fox, if I remember right. That is, yes, it is, it's on Fox Sports 1. It looks like tonight. So that's Game 3, and then they do play tomorrow a 3 o'clock game. By the way, on the mound is Johnny Cueto for the Royals, and I believe it is and then Stroman is on the hill for the Blue Jays. So again, 2 aces in this. Two out of 3 aces are, or I should say, basically all 4 aces, or 3 out of 4 aces outside of Matt Harvey has struggled this postseason, and hopefully they can get back together. But as we see right now, 6-2 Blue Jays in the bottom of the third. The Royals will have Chris Young on the mound tomorrow afternoon, and R.A. Dickey will be on the mound for the Blue Jays. And for the Mets, it'll be DeGrom and then Hendricks for the Cubs. Very interesting choice for Joe Maddon, but that's Joe Maddon. He's a great coach, so I don't doubt him. Well, that's going to take us into a song break here. We'll be back, and we'll start talking NCAA football. This is Sports Live on Mustang Radio. Welcome back to Sports Live. Again, I'm your host, Zach Huntley. Tyler is having the night off as he is sick, so you got me tonight. So we are moving on to reviewing here week 7, of NCAA football, and pretty much halfway through the season, if I remember right, or getting close to halfway through the season. Get down to the chase for the Final Four spots, and things are starting to get interesting now. Starting here on last Thursday night, you had a Pac-12 showdown between the 5-1 Cardinals and the 4-2 UCLA Bruins. And that game was a very high-scoring game, as I could say here. The Cardinals would go on to defeat the Bruins 56-35. Stats for that game was off. I did get to see a little bit of that game. That was a really high-scoring game. For UCLA, Josh Rosen, I believe a top prospect, if I remember right. He's going to be a top prospect going into the NFL draft. He was 22 of 42 for 325 yards and 3 touchdowns with 2 picks. Kevin Hogan was 8 of 15 for 131 yards, 3 touchdowns, and an interception. Rushing, the UCLA finished with 31 total attempts for 181 yards, and Stanford finished with 48 attempts and 310 yards, led by Christian McCaffrey, who had 25 attempts for 243 yards and 4 touchdowns with his longest run of 70 yards. So, very good game to get started with. One receiver topped 100 yards. That was Darren Andrews for UCLA. He was 4 receptions for 100 yards and a touchdown. He also had a 70-yard catch. So, 2 70-yard plays. Again, another big game there. 5-1 now. Stanford now 5-1. They were ranked 15th in the polls, while UCLA was ranked 18th. And Stanford, I believe, made a move. We will talk about that coming up. Toward the end of this segment, we will talk about where we are looking at for rankings. On to Friday night's game, you had Houston on the road number 24 Houston on the road taking on Tulane. That game was all Houston, as Houston came out and dominated, winning 42-7. Houston now goes to 6-0, while Tulane goes to 2-4. Houston out just dominating. You had Houston quarterback Greg Ward Jr. was 17 of 25 for 222 yards and a touchdown. Also had a pick. And then rushing, the quarterback Greg Ward Jr. also had 14 attempts for 77 yards and 3 touchdowns. So he scored, I believe he ended up contributed to 5 of the 6 touchdowns. As a team, Houston finished with 47 attempts and 239 rushing yards for 4 touchdowns, while Tulane finished with 32 attempts and 112 yards, as Tulane also only threw for 150 yards. So a dominating victory for Houston. They should move up they should have moved up in the polling. As for the second game on Friday night, the number 21 Boise State taking on Utah State, and this one was a brutal game for Boise State. Boise State had 8 turnovers in the game, and that pretty much cost them the game. There 8 turnovers, and let's see if I can find scoring play. I believe there was a interception return for a touchdown to, it looks like, to end the half, a 90-yard touchdown, 90-yard interception return for a touchdown for Utah State to end the half. Other than that, they didn't get any more there, but they did have multiple, I believe, picks here. Brett Ripon was 25 of 50 for 299 yards, no touchdowns, and 3 interceptions, while Kent Myers was 17 of 24 for 157 yards and 3 touchdowns for Utah State. Utah State as a team had 43 attempts rushing for 177 yards and 3 touchdowns, while Boise State had 30 attempts for 34 yards and 3 touchdowns. That is a measly 1.1 yard an average. That is just, holy moly, that is that's not pretty, and that's not going to win you football games. So the Utah State upsetting Boise State going to 5-2, while Utah State going to 4-2, excuse me. Coming into Saturday, and a lot of good games going on there. Toledo just crushing Eastern Michigan 63-20. Outscoring Eastern Michigan. It was just a dominant game. Eastern Michigan was able to score 14 points in the fourth, but I'm guessing that's with backups. Toledo had Philip Eiley. Their quarterback was 18 of 27 for 327 yards and 4 touchdowns, which is just remarkable. Very good numbers. Well, Toledo as a team ran 29 times for 238 yards and 3 touchdowns, with their longest run being a 90-yard touchdown run, or a 90-yard run, by Terry Swanson. Eastern Michigan did outrun Toledo, having 48 attempts for 282 yards, so they did do something, but they did get beat. Eastern Michigan goes to 1-6, while number 22 Toledo goes to 6-0. You had the number 17 ranked Iowa Hawkeyes on the road taking on Northwestern Wildcats. That game was quite the dominating fashion, as Iowa going out quickly and dominating, winning 40-10. Iowa on the day, their passing, C.J. Beathard was 15 of 25 for 176 yards and 1 interception. However, their ground game is the one that got them going. They had 51 attempts on the ground for 294 yards and 5 touchdowns, as Northwestern only had 26 attempts for 51 yards and no touchdowns. They averaged a measly 2 yards a carry. While Iowa's Akram Wadley had 26 attempts for 204 yards and 4 touchdowns. An incredible game out of him, as, again, number 17 Iowa defeating number 20 Northwestern 40-10. Iowa goes to 7-0 and leading the Big Ten West, as Northwestern falls to 5-2. The Baylor Bears taking on at home the West Virginia Mountaineers, and that game was all Baylor, as Baylor would come out and defeat West Virginia 62-38. Seth Russell was 20 of 33 for 380 yards for Baylor and 5 touchdowns, while he also rushed for 14 attempts for 160 yards and a touchdown. As a team, they had 50 attempts for 304 yards and 2 touchdowns, and I believe they ended up nope, they didn't quite have more. They had 693 total yards of offense. Molies. No defense by West Virginia, looks like. As West Virginia, no defense out of Baylor either, because West Virginia would end up going to, West Virginia had a total of 471 yards. So Baylor going to 6-0, and West Virginia falling to 3-3. And the final game we'll talk about until we hit the break here, Memphis at home taking on number 13 Ole Miss, and Memphis upsetting number 13 Ole Miss 37-24. Chad Kelly for Ole Miss was 33 of 47 with 372 yards with 2 touchdowns, but also had 2 picks. Well, Paxton Lynch was 39 of 53 for 384 yards and 3 touchdowns and a pick. As for the rushing really nothing too huge. Memphis was 41-107, and Ole Miss was 24 for 40 yards. Just a big game out of Memphis, and very exciting for a Memphis team now. 6-0, they should be getting some recognition, and Ole Miss falls to 5-2 and losing farther in the SEC East or West, I believe, East or West. I can never remember which side they're on. They're with Alabama, but that's gonna take us into break. Here we'll be back in about 5 minutes or so, and we'll continue talking Week 7 of the college football season. This is Sports Live on Mustang Radio. Broadway plays and a trip to New York can be very expensive for college students. Before purchasing an expensive airline ticket, try giving the Southwest Minnesota State University's theater department a shot. Not only can you watch the productions, you can also become involved behind the scenes. The SMSU Theater and Drama Club are always looking for new members. The SMSU Drama Club meets every Tuesday at noon across from the Black Box Theater. From painting to acting to simply watching the show, get involved with the SMSU Theater Department. Do you want to host a radio show? Do you want to be a future TV anchor? Do you want to be a sports broadcaster? If you said yes, then the SMSU Media Club is for you. The possibilities are endless. The SMSU Media Club is involved in the biggest events, not only here at Southwest Minnesota State University, but in the Marshall community as well. The SMSU Media Club covers the homecoming parade, SMSU sporting events, and the daily radio shows. The SMSU Media Club meets every other Wednesday in BA 166. For more information, email the SMSU Media staff at smsu.media@gmail.com. Come be a part of something special. Well, check out this evening's weather here in Marshall. It is right now 61 booming degrees, as our high isn't even supposed to be 61 right now. Fair outside, a low of 48. I believe our high temperature at this time of the year is only supposed to be 55. So, yeah, it's basically warmer than our highs at this time of the year. Going into tomorrow, it's supposed to be partly cloudy skies with a high of 71 and a low of 52, excuse me. For Wednesday, partly cloudy skies and a high of 62 and a low of 38. For Thursday, partly cloudy skies with a high of 65 and a low of 46. For Friday, chance of rain. I shouldn't say a chance of rain right now in the forecast. It looks like rain. For 100% chance of rain, high of 58, low of 44. For Saturday, partly cloudy skies with a high of 56 and a low of 37. And for Sunday, mostly sunny skies and a cold one, as the highs will only be 54 and a low of 40, which is back to normal for this time of the year, as it is almost November. We're really getting close to November, which is very scary to think about. Well, we're going to get back to talking NCAA football as we finish with Ole Miss losing to Memphis. Our next game we have is the number 11 Florida State Seminoles taking on the unranked Louisville Tigers. Or Louisville Cardinals, excuse me. Not Tigers, Cardinals. I don't know why I said Tigers. That's just weird. But the Louisville Cardinals. Florida State would defeat Louisville 41-21. They would go to 6-0 as Louisville falls to 2-4. Everett Golson for Florida State would go 26-38 for 372 yards and 3 touchdowns, while Delvin Cook, the dominant running back at Florida State, had 22 attempts for 163 yards and 2 touchdowns. He outran, almost doubling the rushing of Louisville. So a dominating win there for Florida State as they again go to 6-0 and Louisville falls to 2-4. Next game, you had was supposed to be a very tight game between number 10 Alabama on the road taking on number 9 Texas A&M, and it was not really dominating, it was dominating for Alabama, but not really close, as Alabama would defeat Texas A&M 41-23. Jake Coker for Alabama was 19 of 25 for 138 yards, no touchdowns, no interceptions, while young Kyle Allen for Texas A&M was 20 of 40 for 263, 1 touchdown and 3 interceptions. Kyler Murray came in and was 2 for 4 for 21 yards and another pick. And I believe Alabama ended up having 3 pick sixes, if I remember right. First quarter had a 33-yard pick six. Second quarter had a 93-yard pick six. And the fourth quarter, just to end the game, was a 55-yard pick six. 2 of them by the same guy, McCuff. Fitzpatrick had 2, and Eddie Jackson had 1. For Alabama, rushing-wise, Derrick Henry had a monster game. He had 32 attempts for 236 yards and 2 touchdowns. He measly ran for about 7 or 8 times more than Texas A&M, as Texas A&M had 25 attempts for only 32 yards. So a dominating win by by Alabama. Alabama would go to 6-1, while Texas A&M falls to 5-1. So both losses there, as that SEC should be the SEC East, if I remember. No, SEC West, actually. They flip-flop, as the Big Ten is the other way. But SEC West is getting closer and closer as Alabama is up on top, or toward the top now. You have Alabama and LSU and Texas A&M, and a lot of quality schools that are going for that side just to get to the SEC title game. Moving on to the number 19 Oklahoma Sooners, just completely dominating Kansas State, beating them 55-0. Oklahoma goes to 5-1, while Kansas State falls to 3-3. For Oklahoma, Baker Mayfield turning into a Heisman potential. He was 20 of 27 for 282 yards and 5 touchdowns, while his opponent Joe Hubner was 4 of 14 for a measly 39 yards and 2 interceptions. Rushing-wise, nothing too spectacular. Oklahoma split a lot of touches to equal out for 52 attempts for 232 yards, while Kansas State had 31 attempts for 65 yards. And just another dominating performance for Oklahoma. They should be moving up in the polls. Next game we have on tap was the interesting game, as I call it. Or actually the most intriguing game, especially the way it ended. Number 7, Michigan State on the road taking on number 12, Michigan at the Big House. And, well, the game was all in Michigan's hands until the final seconds. And unfortunately, I just don't know. I can't believe what happened. I mean, I got to see. I wasn't watching on TV, but I was able to watch it before the Florida game came out. And that was just unbelievable. Don't know how it ended, how it could end that way. Connor Cook for Michigan State was 18 of 39 for 328 yards and a touchdown, while Jake Rudock finished 15 of 25 for 168 yards total. For rushing, Michigan State really didn't get much rushing attack. They had 33 attempts for 58 yards, while Michigan really didn't do much either, as they ended up having 33 attempts also for 62 yards. So pretty much a really low scoring, or it wasn't a low scoring game, but a very, this is Sports Live. Who is this?
It's Tina.
Hey, Tina, how's it going?
Oh, that game was awful.
Oh, I feel so bad for you.
It took me over a day to be able to talk about it.
Yeah, it was, I was at the SMSU football game, and I couldn't believe it. All of a sudden I hear this unbelievable finish. I was like, what's going on? And then I saw it, and I don't know what to think about that final play.
And, and I'm not a State fan, but I feel bad for the State player that did it.
Oh,
he broke his hip,
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's right. He is. I believe he's out for the year, if I remember right. I think that's what D'Antonio came out and said.
But he had no chance to go celebrate it or anything,
No, he had no chance to celebrate, but no one else was. Well, he had his chance to celebrate. Didn't have to hear anybody in the crowd because everybody was so shocked. And and then all those, I believe they're giving him death threats for the punter. It's like you can't blame the punter.
The one that fumbled it, yeah.
Yeah, it wasn't a great snap. Couldn't hold on to it, and then I don't know what he was trying to do, but it couldn't be as worse as what Indianapolis tried to do last night. So you can't find anything worse than that. But
what was that about?
Oh, he wasn't supposed to snap the ball. Let's just put it that way. And the guy just wasn't thinking. But no, that's now that they were talking at ESPN, they said that both now Jim Harbaugh knows how not Urban Meyer. Now I can't even think of his name. I just lost his. What's his name?
Yeah.
And now I'm throwing a blank right now, which is just, well, it's been a long day.
I can't remember.
I can't, for Alabama. I can't even think now. Oh, Saban, Nick Saban. There we go. But now that two great coaches share one thing in common, they lost on a special teams play. So it's you know, you can't. I mean, you can only teach enough on special teams, and well, you know, things like that always tend to happen.
Yeah, well, when you get their whole, you know, line right there in your face, I'm sure that's intimidating.
Yeah, those plays are tough, and especially in that kind of situation where you just want to get rid of it, and it just ended up not happening. And Michigan hopefully can wake up from this.
Oh yeah, I hope so too.
Because
they got a big game coming, so.
Yeah, they get. Is it Ohio? It's at Ohio State week this week. I think that's a couple weeks from now, I believe, if I remember right.
It's last game of the year, I believe.
Or is it last game of the year they have Ohio State? I can never remember who anybody in the Big Ten plays. It's kind of it's so weak that I can't. I just can't stand watching it.
So weak?
Yeah, I mean, you look at the divisions and you just look at them. You have Iowa leading the West, and they're at 7-0. I think second place there is like 3 losses, 2 losses, while in the other one you got 3 heavy, hard teams going at it just for one spot.
But look, Ohio State's ranked number 1 in the nation.
Yeah, you got it. Well, yeah. Then there's been questions of that if they should be number 1 still, and it's so hard to well, yeah, you know, they just keep winning. You kind of have to give it to them. You can't just kind of. You can't. Well, you can. I mean, maybe Baylor should have been number 1 the one week when they just tore it up, but who knows? I'd like to be on that committee. I tell you that.
Oh yeah.
That would be fun.
But, you know, that punter though getting the death threats.
Yeah, he's.
I think if the media would leave it alone, it would die down. Because I just read something a couple minutes ago that was just posted by the media. You know, let it go.
Yeah, the media gets everything over it. That's like I saw on Facebook all weekend about how we never talked about any, you know, Army guys getting hurt, but then all of a sudden Lamar Odom gets drugged up and we're all over him.
Yeah, I saw that too.
As I told Tyler last week, Lamar Odom, it's Lamar Odom. He got drugged up. What do we need to talk about it? There's just no reason to talk about it. If he's on his deathbed for natural causes now, yeah, I have every understanding to, but this isn't natural causes. Yeah,
well, he's doing pretty good now. He starts therapy, I think, tomorrow.
Yeah, they said he's up talking around, and it sounded like every Kardashian was there, which doesn't shock me at all.
No, not at all.
No, I think they did finalize, they finalized the divorce. I think the paper. I was going to say maybe they aren't going to get divorced now, but I mean, I think they did finalize everything, and it just hasn't gone through the system. But ugh.
Yeah, I thought I read it was finalized, but I don't know.
You wouldn't think of a potential ex-wife to come to your bedside. That's just not. But I guess she had to make the decision because they technically weren't divorced. So I don't know how she made it through. Who knows?
I don't know.
Well, we're going to have you call in again on Wednesday so you can make fun of Tyler for fantasy. I don't know how he did. He hadn't talked to me all day, so.
He lost.
Oh, he did lose?
Yeah, not by all that much, but he lost.
Now,
30-40.
Wasn't Tyler didn't have a win when you lost to him? Isn't that correct?
Right.
Yeah, now I feel that way. I did get beat to a 0-5 team, so. It was it was not the greatest week. I started the Chachandrick West for Kansas City, and that turned into a dump. And, of course, I'm working, so I couldn't change. I was thinking Steve Smith, and then I didn't change it. And he goes, it was just bad. It was ugly.
It hurts, doesn't it?
Ugly week it does hurt. But, you got to lose some. You got to win some. The nice thing in our league is we have, 6 guys now, if nothing changes like it was last night, 6 or 7 guys that are going to be, tied at 3-3 anyways, so I'm going to be still number 3 in the league anyways.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, it works out that way.
I think I'm still number 1.
You should be. You've only, lost one week?
I lost this week.
Oh, well, if someone was behind your tail, yeah, you could be jumped.
Actually, I think the 2 of us are still tied for first.
Yeah, you're good. Long way left in the season. That's how I always look at it.
Yeah, well, stupid me. I set out what's his name, what that played last night.
Oh,
Well,
let's see. Who went off last night? I can't think who went off last night.
oh
Edelman? No.
no, quarterback.
Oh, Brady?
No.
Or Luck? So it must have been Luck. Or was it yesterday afternoon?
Maybe it was afternoon. I'm looking.
Oh, Rivers? 'Cause I know Rivers against Green Bay had like 503 yards and I don't know how many touchdowns.
That's what it was. I sat him.
Yeah, but you never knew Green Bay would give up that much. That just kind of...
I know, I was shocked.
Yeah, it was quite the interesting. I watched that game. That was incredible. Of course, I only had their Green Bay's tight end Rodgers, but he didn't do anything. So I got to go pick up that Benjamin West for New Orleans. I guess it's the new Jimmy Graham over there. So thanks for calling. I figured you might call in tonight. I didn't know if it'd be maybe you'd wait till Wednesday to call in and talk Michigan, but nice.
Tyler's making a habit out of these Monday things.
Yeah, well, he's making a habit of not making it on a Monday though.
Right, that's what I mean.
I think this is now the third time, I believe now. Let's see here. Tire problems in the cities, couldn't make it. Sick today. Or was it a Wednesday? Maybe it was a Wednesday, the other one. I thought he missed 3 times or a second. I don't know. It's been too many. Can't keep counting anymore.
But anyway, I was sitting here waiting for you to get to the Michigan game, so.
Yeah, I was eventually going to get there.
Yep.
All right. Hopefully we'll talk to you on Wednesday so you can fight with Tyler on something.
Okie dokie, I will.
Thanks for calling in, Tina.
Well, good night.
Good night. Bye.
Bye.
And again, a difficult loss for Michigan, as I was speaking there with Tina, who is unfortunately a big Michigan fan. So tough to watch. You see all those reactions, and I guess Ohio State now has a shirt that's got one of the crazy Michigan fans as their O to start OHIO, which, that's just starting everything. But, a crazy final play there. So Michigan State goes to 7-0 to stay tied with Ohio State, and the Wolverines fall to 5-2. Our next game on the radar is Clemson. Number 5 Clemson at home they took on Boston College. They defeated Boston College 34-17. Deshaun Watson for Clemson was 27 of 41 for 420 yards, 3 touchdowns, and unfortunately he did throw 2 picks. However, Boston College couldn't get much going. Clemson running game only was 36 of 112 and a touchdown, while Boston College did outrun them 38 for 159 and a touchdown, but not good enough. Boston College falls to 3-4 as Clemson goes to 6-0. Another interesting game I thought of from this past Saturday was TCU at Iowa State, and TCU merely only won out. They did defeat them late, but it was 45-21 victory for TCU. Iowa State actually had a 21-14 lead after one and just couldn't, find the end zone again or even get a field goal. TCU's defense, a team that I've always been interested in seeing, just can't seem to do much on defense, and they're showing consistently. You can't do much with that. And TCU would go on to defeat Iowa State 45-21, like I said. TCU goes to 7-0, while Iowa State goes to 2-4. Trevon Boykin, the Heisman candidate for TCU, went 27 of 32 for 436 and 4 touchdowns. And rushing pretty much was Boykin with 74 yards. The domination of TCU continues as they stay undefeated. The Fighting Irish of Notre Dame at home taking on USC, defeating USC 41-31. You had number 1 Ohio State Buckeyes staying undefeated at 7-0, beating Penn State 38-10. I believe it was it TJ or was it JT Barrett, pulling out the old tricks from Florida, from Urban Meyer, doing the old Tim Tebow jump pass to score late in the game. Very exciting there as I saw it. Doesn't look as good as it does out of Tebow's hands, but it's still, just as fun. It brings back the good old memories of Florida football with Urban Meyer and Tim Tebow. And then another late game, or the late game was number 4 Utah. The Utes staying undefeated over Arizona State, 34-18. They go and they stay undefeated, and I believe they jumped in the pool, or not in the pool. They jumped in the poll. Excuse me. They probably did jump in a pool over there in Utah. Well, no, it's pretty cold in Utah, not quite as warm. I was thinking if it was in Arizona State, yeah, they can jump in a pool all they want. And then last game, talk about. Besides the Gopher game, we'll get to that in a second. Of course, the number 8, my Gators, losing to LSU, number 6, 35-28. Florida falls to 6-1, while LSU goes to 6-0. After watching this game, I think you could pretty much say that, Florida is legitimately a sort of contending team, and not a high contending, but they're still contending. I believe they still get a two-game lead in the SEC East. Treon Harris coming in for suspended quarterback Will Guerrera. He was 13-19 for 202 yards and 2 touchdowns. He was 17 of 32 for 271 and 2 touchdowns. I forgot. There's 2 Harrises, so I'm looking at the other Harris. Brendan Harris for LSU was 13-19 for 202 and 2 touchdowns. Leonard Fournette finished with 31 carries for 180 yards and 2 touchdowns. Well, that is not terrible, not great. Florida was able to stop him quite a few times behind the line. He is a monster running back. I give great credit to him. He's a great running back. No dissing him at all. He is a great running back. I mean, I was just hoping Florida stops him. He did stop him pretty well. Not great, but he is going to be a great NFL running back in the future. Antonio Callaway, the freshman, you can call him a rookie. The freshman from Florida had 3 receptions, 100 yards, and could have tied the game late in the game, but the ball was tipped in the end zone for what would have been a 32-yard touchdown. So Florida did lose, but a hard-fought game out of Florida. LSU, a very good team there with Les Miles, continuing to be a good team. If I can find, and then of course you had the Gophers losing at home against Nebraska. If I can find that game, as they aren't ranked, so they can't be on my ranked page. There we go. They lost to Nebraska 48-25. They fall to 4-3. Well, Nebraska getting a win finally after losing so many times. Late in ball games, they go to 3-4. Mitch Leiner going 36 of 40 for 301 yards and a touchdown, while Louis Armstrong Jr. was 18 of 20. Or actually, it's not even Louis. I can't even think of his name. I always think Louis Armstrong, but I don't think it's Louis Armstrong. It's Tommy Armstrong, excuse me. Tommy Armstrong Jr. I'm thinking Louis Armstrong. I don't know why, but Tommy Armstrong Jr. was 18 of 26 for 261 yards and 3 touchdowns. Minnesota falling again to 4-3, as they, I believe, do they have a... No, yes, they do have this week off, so they do have their bye week. Looking at the standings in the Big Ten, you have in the Big Ten East, Michigan State and Ohio State both 3-0 in the conference, 7-0 total. Penn State, Michigan both 2-1, 5-2 overall. Rutgers at 1-2 in the conference, 3-3 overall. Maryland 0-2, 2-4 overall, and Indiana 0-3 in the conference, 4-3 overall. You have Iowa leading the Big Ten West at 7-0, 3-0 in the conference. Wisconsin 2-1 in the conference and at 5-2. Illinois at 1-1 in the conference at 4-2. Northwestern 1-2 in the conference at 5-2. Minnesota 1-2 also in the conference and is 4-3 overall. Nebraska 1-2 in the conference and is 3-4. And you have Purdue 0-3 in the conference and 1-6 total. So that is the look there. See if I can find the. Maybe I can find the the rankings for the NCAA here before we head to a quick break. Yes, we can find the AP rankings here. Coming out for Week 8, starting with number 25 at 5-1 is Pitt. At 24 is 5-2 Ole Miss, so they have dropped from in a matter of a few weeks from number 3 all the way to 24. At 5-1 at 23 is Duke. At 6-0 at 22 is Temple. Houston at 21 is 6-0 also. At 5-1 at number 20, Cal. Number 19 at 6-0 Toledo. Number 18 also at 6-0 Memphis. Number 17 at 5-1 Oklahoma. At 15, both at 15, you have 5-1 Texas A&M, and you have 5-2 Michigan at 15 also. At 14, at 6-0 Oklahoma State. At 13, Florida at 6-1. At 12, you have undefeated Iowa at 7-0. At 11, you have Notre Dame at 6-1. At number 10, you have Stanford at 5-1. And number 9, is 6-0 Florida State. Number 8 again back in the top 10 is 6-1 Alabama. Number 7 is Michigan State at 7-0. At 6 is Clemson at 6-0. LSU moving up from number 6 to number 5 at 6-0. TCU falling, if I remember right, from number 3 to number 4 at 7-0. Utah, for the first time in history, are in the top 3, I believe is what I saw. They are 6-0. Baylor continues to be at number 2 at 6-0. And number 1 is Ohio State. So that is your AP rankings. Coming Wednesday, me and Tyler will probably talk a little more college football, but that is your recap of college football. Coming up here in a few minutes, we're going to go quickly to a break, song break here. You've been listening to Sports Live. Coming up, we will review Week 6 of NFL football. This is, again, Sports Live on Mustang Radio. Welcome back to Sports Live. It is just after 9. We'll have another about 45 minutes left. We'll talk NFL football and get some fantasy football also in there. Good weekend of NFL football as I watched, and unfortunately fantasy didn't go too well for me, but, that's just how life rolls. But otherwise, pretty good football week, and as in a second here, and we'll get this rolling for some scores. There we go. So we are ready. Starting Thursday night, you had the New Orleans Saints at home taking on the undefeated Atlanta Falcons. Well, they're not undefeated anymore. New Orleans at home coming out and winning 31-21. It was the final there. And, it was an exciting game in that one. Matt Ryan was 30 of 44 for 295 yards and 2 touchdowns, while Drew Brees was 30 of 39 for 312 yards and a touchdown. Devontae Freeman, again, another 100-yard game for him. He was 13 attempts for 100 yards and a touchdown. And Mark Ingram finished with 20 attempts for 46 yards and 2 touchdowns. Big games for, while Julio Jones only had 6 receptions for 93 yards on a huge game, but a good game for him. Benjamin Watson, tight end out of New Orleans, finishing with 10 receptions, 127 yards and a touchdown. Well, that is a good game out of him. New Orleans goes to 2-4, while the Atlanta Falcons fall to 5-1. So that's how that game went. Coming into Sunday, you had, of course, Minnesota at home taking on the Kansas City Chiefs. And exciting game that was, as the Vikings able to hang on for a 16-10 victory over the Chiefs. Alex Smith for Kansas City finished 22 of 37 for 282 yards and a touchdown. Well, Teddy Bridgewater was 17 of 31 for 249 yards, a touchdown, and 2 picks. Very average game for Teddy, not a great game for Teddy. I thought he rushed or had a few throws that he overdid. Kansas City's rushing only had 57 yards on 18 attempts, with many different guys running the ball. As you know, Jamal Charles is out for the year, so they're kind of going running back, come by committee. Charchandrick West was the starter. He had 9 attempts for 33 yards. For Minnesota, Adrian Peterson had 26 attempts for 60 yards. No touchdowns. Kind of a dull game for him, not a great game. Sounded like he had a few injuries here and there, but hand injuries maybe, a hand injury maybe, but otherwise just kind of tough against a good defensive line. For Minnesota, though, for receiving, Stephon Diggs, his second game in the NFL, and, he's putting up numbers. He had 7 receptions for 129 yards. Wouldn't be shocked to see this guy getting picked up in quite a few fantasy leagues because maybe he can keep it going. Minnesota with the win goes to 3-2, and with the loss, Kansas City falls to 1-5. Did not see Kansas City being 1-5, but without Jamal Charles, it's going to be tough for them to come back. Moving on to the New York Jets. They were at home taking on the Washington Redskins. The Jets would win 34-20 there over the Redskins. For Washington, Kirk Cousins, he was 25 of 43 for 196 yards, 1 touchdown and 2 interceptions, while Ryan Fitzpatrick was 19 of 26 for 253 yards, 2 touchdowns, and a pick. Rushing-wise, Washington only had 34 rushing yards, while the Jets had 221 total, with Chris Ivory running the ball 20 times, 146 yards, and a touchdown. Brandon Marshall, another 100-yard game receiving. He's a guy, I tell you, that move, I think, from Chicago to the Jets will help him in the long run. Again, Washington just struggling. I mean, they got no quarterback to speak of. Running game, that's very shaky. Their top receiver still out with a hamstring. They lose their top tight end with another concussion. I just don't know about this Washington team. Washington falls to 2-4, while the Jets go to 4-1. The Pittsburgh Steelers, without Ben Roethlisberger, taking on at home the Arizona Cardinals, and they upsetted the Cardinals 25-13. Carson Palmer finished 29 of 45 for 421 yards, 1 touchdown and 2 picks. While Michael Vick started the game, he was 3 of 8 for 6 yards. He ended up leaving with, I believe they have said, is a partially torn hamstring, I believe, in his leg. I believe that's what they've said, and now don't quote me on that one. Landry Jones came in for him. He was 8 of 12, 168 yards and 2 touchdowns. Running the ball was very difficult from Arizona. They only had 55 rushing yards total. Chris Johnson finished with 40 yards, while Le'Veon Bell finished with 88 yards. So he had an okay game, but the receiving was unbelievable. John Brown for Arizona had 10 receptions, 196 yards, while Martavius Bryant, which I believe this is his second game back from his suspension, he had 6 receptions, 137 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Again, a guy that a lot of guys benching in fantasy, Antonio Bryant, 3 receptions, 24 yards. Maybe with Landry Jones in there, he might be okay, but if Michael Vick stays as quarterback, he's just not a guy to start in fantasy. Pittsburgh goes to 4-2, while Arizona falls to 4-2. Cincinnati traveled all the way up to Buffalo. Well, not all the way up to. It's not a far drive, or a terrible drive, but up to Buffalo. They beat the Buffalo Bills 34-21 to stay undefeated. Andy Dalton, again, another great game from Dalton, 22 of 33 for 243 yards and 3 touchdowns. E.J. Manuel finished 28 of 42 for 263 yards and a touchdown and an interception. Jeremy Hill and Giovanni Bernard both pretty much not split carries, but pretty much had the same yardage. Hill finished with 56 yards, while Bernard finished with 50. They finished with 112 total on the ground for Cincinnati. For Buffalo, 112 yards. LaShawn McCoy, in his first game back in a while, he had 17 attempts for 90 yards and a touchdown. Receiving, Marvin Jones had a big game with 9 receptions, 95 yards, and a touchdown. A.J. Green was quiet. Tyler Eifert was quiet, had a touchdown, though. Charles Clay had 62 yards receiving, otherwise very quiet day for Buffalo, with Sammy Watkins also back from injury. He'd had 4 for 48 yards and a touchdown. But again, Buffalo falling to 3-3 with the loss. Cincinnati stays undefeated at 6-0. The Chicago Bears on the road taking on the Detroit Lions. This game was pretty much for all the marbles. Toilet bowl team in the pretty much toilet bowl team. 2 toilet bowl teams in the NFC North. was actually a pretty incredible game. Jay Cutler finishing 26 of 41 for 353 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. Cutler been playing very well for the last few weeks. Just haven't been able to get those wins out. Stafford playing very well. Was 27 of 42, 405 yards, 4 touchdowns, and an interceptions. Rushing was pretty quiet for both teams. Matt Forte finished with 24 for 69 and a touchdown. Amir Abdullah finished 14 of 48. Detroit did finish with 155 yards rushing, while Chicago finished with 91. Receiving, Alshon Jeffrey for Chicago had 8 receptions for 147 yards and a touchdown, while Calvin Johnson for Detroit had 6 receptions, 166 yards, and a touchdown. Lance Moore finished with 5 receptions for 106 yards and a touchdown. Haven't seen him do much since he went to Detroit. I believe, if I remember right, he was with New Orleans for the longest time. So Detroit winning their first game of the year, going to 1-5 as Chicago falls to 2-4. The Denver Broncos on the road taking on the Cleveland Browns. And, well, to say the least, that this game went in overtime is a shocker. Denver escapes with a 26-23 win in overtime over Cleveland. Peyton Manning, 26 of 48 for 290 yards, 1 touchdown, and 3 interceptions. A very poor game from Peyton Manning. Josh McCown for Cleveland was 20 of 39 for 213 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 2 interceptions. The one pick I saw him throw before, I think it was before, or was it during overtime or before regulation ending? Or no, it was during overtime, I believe, when he threw just a terrible throw. Something that I mean, maybe I would throw in a backyard game. It was that bad. So it was overall not a great game. Rushing, Ronnie Hillman had 20 attempts for 111 yards. Well, he outran the entire Cleveland running game as they only had 109 yards total on the ground. Demaryius Thomas finished with 111 yards in the receiving with 10 receptions. Emmanuel Sanders had 4 receptions for 109 yards and a touchdown. Travis Benjamin finished with 9 receptions and 117 yards. While Gary Barnidge, another guy that's, woke up a lot of fantasy owners, 3 receptions, 39 yards. Didn't look good there, but, when you got 2 touchdowns in that column, that sure helps you out a lot. Denver with the win stays undefeated at 6-0, while Cleveland falls to 2-4. And that'll be the last game we'll do. We're going to take another quick song break, come back, finish up with the NFL, reviewing NFL. We'll give a little bit of standings update you on the game going on so far tonight, and then talk some fantasy football and get you updated again on Game 3 of the ALCS. This is Sports Live on Mustang Radio. Welcome back to Sports Live. We are back here continuing our review of Week 6 of the NFL. Our next game we have here is the Houston Texans traveling on the road to the Jacksonville Jaguars. Houston came out with a victory, 31-20. Brian Hoyer for Houston was 24-36 for 293 yards and 3 touchdowns, while Blake Bortles finished 30 of 53 for 331 yards, 3 touchdowns, and 3 interceptions. Arian Foster only had 18 attempts for 53 yards, and Jacksonville didn't get a running game going at all. As for receiving, DeAndre Hopkins had another huge game, 10 receptions, 148 yards, and 2 touchdowns. With the win, Houston goes to 2-4. With the loss, Jacksonville falls to 1-5. Next game, the Miami Dolphins with their newly interim head coach on the road taking on Marcus Mariota and the Tennessee Titans. Miami would win 38-10 there. Ryan Tannehill was 22 of 29 for 266 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 2 interceptions. Marcus Mariota was 21 of 33 for 219 yards, 1 touchdown, and 2 picks. Lamar Miller finished with 113 yards on 19 attempts for a touchdown, while Tennessee didn't get a running game going as they only had, as a team, 63 total yards. Receiving, Rashard Matthews for Miami had 6 receptions for 85 yards, while for Tennessee, Delanie Walker had 8 receptions for 97 yards. With the win, Miami moved to 2-3. With the loss, Tennessee falls to 1-4. Our next game in Seattle, the Seattle Seahawks at home taking on the Carolina Panthers, and the Panthers goes in to Seattle and upsets the Seattle Seahawks 27-23. Cam Newton finished with 20 of 36 for 269 yards, 1 touchdown and 2 picks, while Russell Wilson was 18 of 30, 241 yards and a touchdown. Rushing-wise, Jonathan Stewart had 20 attempts for 78 yards and 2 touchdowns, while Marshawn Lynch was back, had 17 attempts for 54 yards and a touchdown. Receiving, Greg Olsen had an incredible game as he finished with 7 receptions, 131 yards, and the game-winning touchdown. And so he had 1 touchdown there. Jimmy Graham finished highest for Seattle for 8 receptions and 140 yards. 2 teams, of course, that have just 2 tight ends that know how to catch the ball and always get the highest total. Carolina with the win stays undefeated at 5-0, while with the loss, Seattle now falls to 2-4, and I think maybe it's time for the panic button to go off in Seattle, as they are 2 games below 500, need something to go right. Next game, Green Bay at home taking on the San Diego Chargers, and Green Bay came away with a victory late 27-20 as they had a goal line stop to win that game. Phillip Rivers, a career game as he was 43 of 65 for 503 yards and 2 touchdowns, while Aaron Rodgers was 16 of 29 for 255 yards and 2 touchdowns. Not many times you can say Aaron Rodgers got thrown or was blowing out throwing the ball, but sometimes you don't have to throw the ball all the time. San Diego rushing game pretty dead. They had 21 total attempts, all split carries at 7 apiece for 60 total yards, with Melvin Gordon with 29 leading the way, while James Starks finished with 10 attempts for 112 yards and a touchdown. He broke off for a 65-yard touchdown. And Eddie Lacy, very little to do yesterday as he only had 4 attempts for 3 yards. So another poor game not poor game, probably another injured-filled game for Lacy. Green Bay with the wins goes to 6-0. With the loss for San Diego, they fall to 2-4. In the Super Bowl rematch of a few years ago, the Baltimore Ravens traveled to the San Francisco 49ers. The 49ers prevailed with a 25-20 victory. Joe Flacco was 33 of 53 for 343 yards. Or 343 yards, 2 touchdowns and 2 picks. Colin Kaepernick looked like his old self. He was 16 of 27 for 340 yards and 2 touchdowns. Justin Forsett finished with 17 attempts for 62 yards, while Carlos Hyde had 21 attempts for 55 yards. Really no rushing game out of either team. While receiving, Steve Smith coming off of, well, not really coming off of, still having like 4 broken ribs, had 7 receptions, 137 yards, and a touchdown, while Anquan Bolden had 5 receptions for 102 yards, and Torrey Smith had 3 receptions for 96 yards and a touchdown. Again, San Francisco with the win, they go to 2-4. With the loss for Baltimore, they fall to 1-5. And then, of course, last night's game in Indianapolis, the New England Patriots taking on Indianapolis. New England coming out with the victory, 34-27 over Indianapolis. Tom Brady was 23 of 37 for 312 yards, 3 touchdowns and an interception, while Andrew Luck, coming back from his shoulder injury that he had, he was 30 of 50 for 312 yards, 3 touchdowns. LeGarrette Blount finished with the rushing with 16 attempts, 93 yards and a touchdown, while Frank Gore had 13 attempts and 78 yards. Receiving-wise, Danny Amendola finished the game with a high of 7 receptions for 105 yards. Edelman had 6 receptions for 50, as Gronk had 3 receptions for 50 also, and 1 touchdown each. T.Y. Hilton led the Indianapolis Colts with 6 receptions and 74 yards and a touchdown, with Dante Moncrief finishing second with 6 receptions and 69 yards and a touchdown. So with the win, New England goes to 5-0. With the loss, Indianapolis now at 500 at 3-3. And as I get the standings here, in the AFC, we can tell you how it's going. And starting the third quarter right now, it is 17-7 Eagles. The Eagles are at home against the Giants. It is 17-7 on Monday Night Football. So far, Eli Manning is 18 of 25 for 1 touchdown and 2 picks, while Sam Bradford's 14 of 24 for a touchdown and a pick. Rashid Jennings is 9 of 38 rushing, and Ryan Matthews leads the way with 5 for 21 for the Eagles, and Riley Cooper has 2 receptions for 75 yards and a touchdown, while Odell Beckham has 7 receptions for 61 yards and a touchdown. So that is 17-7 in the third quarter. So back to the standings in the AFC East. The New England Patriots with the 1-game lead. They are 5-0 with the Jets in second at 4-1. Buffalo at 3-3. They are 2.5 behind, and Miami at 2-3, 3 games behind. In the AFC North, you have Cincinnati undefeated at 6-0. Pittsburgh at 4-2, 2 games behind. Cleveland at 2-4, 4 games behind, and Baltimore 1-5, 5 games behind. In the AFC South, the very weak AFC South, Indianapolis leads the division lead at 3-3. 1 game behind is Houston at 2-4, and a game and a half behind is Tennessee at 1-4, and 2 games behind is Jacksonville at 1-5. So realistically, Jacksonville has a total shot at winning this division yet. In the AFC West, the Denver Broncos at 6-0 have a 3.5 game lead over the 2-3 Oakland Raiders, while San Diego's 2-4 and is 4 games behind. Kansas City is 1-5 and are 5 games behind. In the NFC East, so far you can't really do because the Giants are playing, so right now they are 3-2, but playing right now. Dallas is 2-3. They were on a bye. They were a game back, and starting Matt Castle next week. Philadelphia playing right now, they are 2-3 and a game back, and then Washington with the losses 2-4 and a game and a half back. In the NFC North, the Green Bay Packers, of course, are undefeated at 6-0. 2.5 games behind is Minnesota at 3-2, looking to make up some time here in the division. They need to hopefully get some Green Bay losses to get up there. And Chicago at 2-4, they are 4 games behind. Detroit 5 games behind at 1-5. The NFC South, Carolina undefeated at 5-0. They are only a half game up over Atlanta at 5-1. They are 3 games up over Tampa Bay, who are at 2-3, and New Orleans is 3.5 games behind at 2-4. And then the NFC South at 4-2, Arizona leads the division by a game and a half over the 2-3 St. Louis Rams, and 2 games over both the 2-4 Seattle Seahawks and San Francisco 49ers. So a very interesting spot there. Looking at it, if the season would end today, the 2 wild cards for the AFC would be the Jets and the Pittsburgh Steelers. And the 2 for the NFC would be the Atlanta Falcons and the number 6 seed, who would be taking on the Arizona Cardinals in Arizona, which they will be going to Arizona soon, I believe, is your Minnesota Vikings right now currently hold the last spot in the division, but a long ways to go with a lot of teams at 2-3 and 2-4 and 1-5 even. So it's an interesting spot, but, you know, about not quite halfway through the season. Next week, of course, the Vikings are on the road in Detroit. We'll get to that more on Wednesday when we do our Pick'em show. I want to, before we hit our break here in a few minutes, I wanted to give you an update, or maybe, no, we're going to hit break right now, and then I'll come back and talk Major League Baseball, update you on the Major League Baseball game, and then talk some fantasy football to wrap up the show. This is Sports Live on Mustang Radio. Students of Southwest Minnesota State University, do you have concerns, questions, or issues? The Student Association Senate is the place to voice your opinions. Meetings are in PE 214 every Thursday at 6:15. Your student senators and executive staff are the voice for the students of SMSU. Let the Student Senate know your concern by calling 507-537-6140 or stop by the Student Association office in the SMSU Student Center. Speak with the Student Association and let your voice be heard. Students of Southwest Minnesota State University, do you want to help change the world? How about a club that enables you to help others, help yourself, and boost your resume? Well, look no further than the SMSU Enactus. Enactus is open to all students regardless of major. Joining Enactus is a great way to meet new people and help others. So come see what it's all about. Team meetings are held every Tuesday at noon in the lower level conference room. For more information about Enactus, you can contact Aaron Lang at aaron.lang@smsu.edu. Well, we're going to take another look at the weather. I'm guessing nothing much has changed. It is Marshall. It is 57 degrees right now, and Fair Low is supposed to be 48 degrees. For tomorrow, partly cloudy skies, the high of 71 and a low of 52. For Wednesday, partly cloudy skies, the high of 62 and a low of 38. For Thursday, mostly sunny skies and a high of 65 and a low of 45. For Friday, 100% chance of rain with a high of 58 and a low of 44. For Saturday, partly cloudy skies and a high of 56 and a low of 37 degrees. And for your Sunday, mostly sunny skies with a high of 54 and a low of 40. That is the look at your weather. And now we're going to take a quick look again, an update on the Major League Baseball game Game 3, of the ALCS. Right now it is 10-4 Toronto as they lead in the top of the 7th inning. Late in the game there, as when we last looked, it was 6-2. Toronto did score another run in the bottom of the third as Kevin Pillar ended up doubling to get it to 7-2. Josh Donaldson then hit a 2-run homer to get it to 9-2. And then Kansas City would score 2 in the top of the 5th to get it to 9-4, and then Ryan Gomes ended up homering to get it to 10-4, and that is where we are in the top of the 7th. So it looks like the Blue Jays are going to get this to a 2-1 deficit, but there is still plenty of game to go. Well, we're going to move on for our last, about 16 minutes or so that we have, or 15 minutes or so that I'm going to do. Talk a little fantasy football. I know me and Tyler will probably do our studs, and we'll do our studs and duds on Wednesday. But I just kind of wanted to go through some of the top performers at each position. Starting at quarterback, he had Matthew Stafford, and he had a total of 33 points to lead the way at quarterbacks. Phillip Rivers had 28, with Luck ending at number 3 with 27. At running back, you had Devontae Freeman, of course, leading the week again. He had 27 points. Chris Ivory had 25 points. James Starks had 23 points. And LeGarrette Blount finishing the guys with 20 points. He had 22 points total. At wide receiver, DeAndre Hopkins had 26 points. Martavis Bennett had 25 points. Kelvin Johnson had 22 points. Alshon Jeffrey had 20 points, and he ended up, and that rounds out the guys with 20, multiple guys with 15 plus. Very good week there running at wide receiver, except for some of us. At tight end, you had Greg Olsen leading the way with 19, Benjamin Watson with 18, Gary Barnidge at 15, Jimmy Graham at 14, Julius Thomas with 13, and Rob Gronkowski did make it into double digits with 11. And other than that, there was no double digits on the board. So tight end was kind of dull this week. A lot of weeks there is, but you never know. With your defense, right now, Miami leads the way with 25. Philadelphia right now, and it's going to most likely change. Right now, they have 21 points. Denver had 18. New Orleans had 16, and Houston had 14. And nobody else ended up having double digits. Well, we had 6 teams with negative points, including Green Bay, Atlanta, Detroit, Jacksonville, Chicago, and the Bills. They all had negative points. So defense tough to come by, but you maybe get lucky with a double-digit score. And then for kickers, he had Pittsburgh's Chris Boswell lead the week with 17. Phil Dawson had 16. Steven Hauschka and Robbie Goldbolt had 14. Brandon McManus had 13, as did Matt Prater. And then Blair Walsh with 12, with Steven Gostkowski, Mike Nugent with 11. And rounding out the guys in double digits was Dustin Hopkins with 10. Again, as I said, there could be more coming as, let's see here, maybe not. 5 points for the one. So maybe they might be able to bust out, but probably not. But that is your recap of some of the high points of fantasy. And, as for myself in fantasy, it was a pretty disappointing week. I believe I think I went actually. Did I go 0-4 in 4 leagues that I'm in, or did I go? Let's see here. No, I went 1-3. Very disappointing week. In the league where I pay the most money, I lost to the worst team player in our entire league, Mr. Alex Thorson, and might as well give you some clapping for that. I mean, good job for him. He beat me. He got his first win. I congratulate him for that first victory. But still, well, he's not out of the playoffs. I mean, you look at our standings. We have quite the interesting standings. Fans are still clapping for him. Good job. Standings are looking interesting. Most of us going to be 3-3. He's gonna he'll be 1-5. So it'll be, I don't know, pretty interesting to look at the rest of the week or rest of the year. But looking at my team, I need to do something because I just started Chentrendrick West. That didn't go well. He had 1.9 points for me. Brendan Cooks 4.1 for me. 3.4 out of Richard Rogers. New England's D didn't do anything, so it was kind of a disappointing week out of me. Hopefully next week's better. A couple free agents I'm looking at getting, but I don't know, guys looking at, because I think Detroit plays Minnesota, so you can't go after. Could go after Stafford. Last time he had, let's see here, he had 19.4 against Minnesota last time. Wouldn't be a bad idea to go get him because Flacco's taking on Arizona, but you never know. You got a couple running backs to go get. Probably go get one running back and a tight end. Hopefully that'll help my cause. But you never know with how things are rolling in fantasy because you got to remember, fantasy football is all luck. There's a little skill picking the players, but pretty much all luck. And the other team the other league I'm paying a little bit of money. Well, I haven't paid yet, but in the little paid league I'm playing, I'm going to go to 2-4. I don't know. Weird team that I actually would have won this week, actually, in my other league if I had this team. So maybe I can switch the teams. That'd be fun. But 91 total points. John Brown helped me. Sanders helped me. Gronk helped me, and so did Flacco. Other than that, pretty dead week. I mean, just fantasy in general was dead for me and didn't have really any high score. I think my highest scoring team was 109 points. I think that's even a PPR league if I remember right. Maybe it is. I'm not for sure. But that wasn't even too shabby as I had a lot of guys on the bench that I benched Jimmy Graham because I figured he wouldn't do anything. So, things like that happen, I guess. And in my luck, it's been a terrible year in fantasy as I have lost several players. No excuses anymore. But, I'm going to try to do something to help my cause and win a few more times. Maybe get Romo back. Romo should be back in, I believe, let's see here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 weeks. He should be back by right before playoff time. It'll be the last week before playoffs. He'll be back. I'll have Doug Martin next week, which will help. I don't have to start Chentrendrick West. They take on Washington. Should be a decent running time for him. Surprisingly, Doug Martin's actually the third best running back in the league, which is surprising. And I traded for him, so that's one good move I've ever made. Jordan Reed, my tight end, who knows if he'll be back. They say he's improving. Probably not, so I got to go find another tight end there. Steve Smith, the old man, still continues to do it. I don't know how, but he's gotten 3 games over 100 yards. Dang near 200 yards in one game. Tell me how he does it, and we'll both find out how he does it. He's so old and wants to retire, but he doesn't need to retire because I could take him again next year. Well, other than that, out of fantasy, there isn't much more to talk about. Me and Tyler will talk more about that on Wednesday, I believe. Yeah, Wednesday is next time. Hopefully he's back. He said hopefully he's feeling better, but you never know out of him. He's already missed, I think, 3 times. I don't know how many times he's missed. He's missed quite a few. He kind of puts me in that spot. But you know what? Talking with you guys is fun. Going over stuff is fun. But it's better with him, so, who knows? We'll see what he is. I'm going to see for the last few minutes if I can find some stories out of Bleach Report, because we didn't really do a headlining segment this on Monday or today. Wanted to kind of get into college football and NFL. So we'll see what kind of story. There was a few stories we talked about when Tina was on the line about the kicker getting death threats or the punter getting death threats for his missed or his poorly judged ended up play. Shouldn't be happening, but things like that tend to always happen because people always like to overstate things. Another thing I wanted to talk about was the interesting thing coming out of Florida, by the way. Of course, maybe I should head down to Florida. They decided to hold open tryouts for students in hopes of finding a kicker. Now, not saying that they don't have a kicker on the team. They have a kicker on the team. They just have both kickers are injured. So they can still play, but they're just, they can't really, they can play, they're not really wanting that. So, like reading here and just imagining waking up as a student and then going to bed as a member of a top 25 team. See, now that's fun. Luckily, the Gators have the week off, so they will have time to, if they want to find a kicker. Of course, they have to go through all these tryout requirements, which is like register with the NCAA for eligibility, request final amateurism, obtain approval from football, and then you got to improve from the Office of Student Life, and then you got to obtain a physical and blah, 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 blah to play. But you never know. They might find somebody. I might go down there and go myself and try to kick. Why not? It'd be fun to do. Because just saying, if I'm the kicker of the Florida Gators, I'd be happy man. One happy man. Another thing we've been talking about was the trick play New England did. Now, I don't understand what they weren't trying to trick play. It was trying to get the team off, or try to get New England offsides. Didn't work, and they decided to snap the ball with 2 guys on one side while the other 9 were, on the other or way on the right side. And well, you know what happens when you got 2 guys versus 6 defenders here. It's not going to go out well, and it didn't go out well. Still very questioning that move. Well, it shouldn't be questioning that move. It should be more of what was that guy thinking of snapping the ball, because it's not anybody else's fault but the snapper at this point. Other than that, looking at news, there hasn't been much news going through the world of sports. Here's some storyline. They have the top. Here's some underrated storylines, I guess. We got endurance sports that are going on. Lots of endurance sports. Lots of marathons I've been seeing all over the place. That's been going on. I didn't know this. This is quite interesting. I didn't know there was such thing as a National Women's Hockey League. Very interesting. It's Canadian. That's very nice. So it must be brand new, it looks like. Because it says the Canadian Women's Hockey League has been around. Oh, they've been since 2007, but doesn't pay its players. But now they will play players between $10,000 and $25,000 a year, and the athletes commit to 2 practices per week plus 18 games. Wow. Very interesting. Didn't know that. You got the NASCAR chase for the Sprint Cup. Don't know much about NASCAR, so I just know it's, you got to make it into each round, and I think I think, what's his name's not in it. I think he got eliminated this year. Jimmy Johnson, there's the guy I was looking for. But yeah, they got the Chase Cup. I believe they got, two races left to go there. This is interesting. League of Legends World Championships. What is the League of Legends? That is interesting. It's in Europe. Interesting. Worldwide is 134 million worldwide views. Wow. Up to $11 million. That is very interesting. Never heard of that. Wonder what sport that is. League of Legends. They don't explain it here, but looks very interesting. NHL, of course, they're talking expansions. They always talk expansions every week, it seems like. Champions League soccer, they're in group stage. A lot of drama. You had Barcelona dealing with injuries to Messi. Bayern Munich's friends are threatening to boycott. Ticket prices are terrible, I guess. Tensions is rumored to exist between Real Madrid's teammates Cristiano Ronaldo and Gareth Bale. Don't know much about soccer, but that doesn't sound good. In any sport, that doesn't sound good. So, interesting there. Rugby World Cup. There's a World Cup for rugby. Wow, interesting. Rugby. I've heard of rugby. I've never watched it. And it looks like New Zealand will face South Africa next, and then there'll be a final played on Halloween. Interesting. Very interesting. Other than that, pretty much, nothing underrated. More underrated. So it said underrated storylines. There is some underrated storylines already. You never knew that. Not a lot of that stuff you've ever heard of, but, it's interesting. You learn some new things in sports every day. Seems like I don't, but I do. Looking at it, haven't seen much otherwise than other news. So, golf started, of course, they started the new season up again as they had the Fries.com Open played this last week. Tiger was supposed to play in it, but of course he was out with his back injury, so he did not play it. Emiliano Grillo ended up winning in a playoff to beat Kevin Na. Justin Rose played in it. He finished tied for 6th, while Rory McIlroy finished in a tie for 26th at 9 under par. So, tournament that Tiger will probably end up playing next year if healthy. They said he had to play in it because of this whole ordeal that they played in this exhibition. So, yeah. You got the Shriners this week for Children Open, and then the CIMB Classic. That'll be at the end of November, or the end of October into November. And then you got the Sanderson Farms Championship, and then the WGC HSBC Champions, OHL Classic at Mayakoba, and the McGladrey Classic in all through November. And then in December, you got, of course, Tiger's tournament, the Hero World Challenge. He will not be playing in that again because of the back injury. And then you get the Franklin Templeton Shootout. And then it is technically the official start to the campaign. And, that's going to do it for tonight. For me, Zach Huntley, it was great. We'll come back Wednesday, do our famous pick'ems, and talk more sports, probably more baseball as the baseball postseason continues underway. And we'll see what other fun things that me and Tyler can talk about. But again, this has been Sports Live with me, your host, Zach Huntley. We will see you guys on Wednesday. This has been Mustang Radio.